Donald Trump starts right now on justice. Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. Well, he's defied the pundits, the prognosticators, and the critics. And although we're over a month away from the Republican National Convention, Donald Trump has already won the delegates needed to be the grand old party's nominee for President of the United States. This week, I traveled to California and visited with Donald at his Beverly Hills home, the first time cameras have been allowed inside. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, Donald and I have known each other and been friends for decades. He's even donated to some of my past campaigns. But this interview is about the issues and how everything in the political world has changed in a year. All right, so here we are in sunny California. Think back to a year ago. You were a billionaire who was dabbling in politics, a flash in the pan. There was this woman who was supposed to be coronated, and now everything is backwards. This woman who was supposed to be coronated is fighting Bernie Sanders and in a tie, dead heat here in California. How'd you do it?
Well, it's been an interesting journey. I mean, it started in June 16th of last year, and it's just been a succession of, we've had so many victories. You know, we had 17 people totally running, and it's been an amazing period of time. I guess a lot of people say that. I'm not the only one, but I fought a good fight, and I beat a lot of people that are good people, and now I have one left. It'll probably be Crooked Hillary. She's crooked as you get. And it'll probably be her, and we're going to see what happens.
And I think it was in August of 2015 when you were on my show, Justice, and we talked about the RNC, and you demanded that they treat you fairly. Was the whole issue about the third-party run thing, wasn't that part of the treat me fairly issue? Well,
it was, but, you know, we're going to see what happens. I don't think there'll be a third party, or certainly not a credible third party. Right now you have the Libertarians. I don't see that. I know the people, and I don't see that as being much of a threat. You have...
but have they treated you fairly?
Yes, the RNC has treated me fairly. They don't really control. If some wacko, like, you know, these characters that are trying to put on...
Bill Weld.
Well, I'm not even talking about them. I'm talking about a couple of other guys, that, you know, fringe.
Oh.
They want to put on somebody. Well, I won't even mention the name. You want to give them as little publicity as possible. But I don't think that'll have much of an impact.
So you feel the RNC has treated you fairly?
I do. I think Reince has been very good. I think that, you know, it's not easy. Don't forget, he was looking at 18, and actually it was probably at the highest point, 18 people. Mm-hmm. And they were governors and they were senators. Not everybody agrees with everything I'm doing. I want the wall. I want certain things to happen. A lot of people agree with me. You know, the interesting thing, Jeanine, is that I've gotten right now more votes than anybody in the history of the Republican Party. So I went through the process. We did well in Iowa, and then after that it was just a succession of victories with New Hampshire and South Carolina, everywhere. But the big story is everybody's come aboard. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at people that were absolutely horrible in terms of what they said, they're now aboard.
How do you feel about that? I mean, do you trust people who are just horrible to you?
Well, politicians can pivot much more easily than, let's say, a person like me can pivot. You know, they pivot. I mean, they can say horrible things, and then 2 weeks later...
But how does a person like you react?
like Rick Perry's a good guy. He's always been a good guy. But he was very nasty during the election, and then he got out, and then he endorsed me. I didn't speak to him. He endorsed me, and he said the nicest things. He said that Donald Trump is maybe the smartest person ever to run for the office.
Without
That's a nice statement.
Without.
That was a long way from what he was before. And I'll tell you what, I fully understand what he's doing and what he did, and I like him a lot. And other people have likewise. You know, they said this was a very heated battle. There are those that say, you would know better maybe than most, but there are those that say it was the most vicious battle for the nomination that any party has ever seen.
Over the years,
so I don't know. But
Donald, over the years, you've kind of dabbled in the idea of, you know, running for president. Is it what you thought it would be?
It's more vicious. It's there's more lying and deception than ever. I never thought there'd be this kind of lying. But the lying and deception, the smiling, and then the knife in the back. And I deal with tougher people because the business world at the top they're tougher, but in a certain way they're more honorable. deceit and the disgusting media, because the media is very dishonest. Not all of it, of course, but so much of it is dishonest. The Washington Post is very, very dishonest.
Well, and I want to get to that, but you know, you have been the most accessible candidate in history in terms of the press, and yet you believe that many of them are not treating you fairly. Are you now going to limit your accessibility?
No. Look, I will say this. There are some that are really bad. Washington Post is really dishonest. Really, really dishonest.
Why are they so much against you?
Because they think that I, frankly, you want to know the truth, is the person that bought it has a big stake in Amazon, and Amazon's not paying taxes, and I've said openly that they should be paying taxes, and they're also destroying the retail industry throughout the country. I don't care about that, other than it's not a good thing to happen to our country, and I've said it. And they're going to be a monopoly. You look at the department stores, what's happening to them. They're going down the drain because Amazon is becoming a monopoly. And they know, and he bought that as a tool for himself, like a lobbyist. But the Washington Post has 22 reporters on me. There's never a good story. I mean, you know, I could win by the biggest margins in history, and they'll say Donald Trump should have done better. Well, they are a very dishonest group. New York Times is very dishonest. I mean, New York Times is a very dishonest newspaper. I would say the Washington Post is worse, but I'm not talking about they're unfair. I'm talking they're purely dishonest. Things that they know. I mean, as an example, I raised for veterans almost $6 million. And I think more will be coming in, but I raised almost $6 million. I thought that was a positive story. I mean, I paid a lot of it out early, but some came in, and we had to vet the situation. Okay, instead of a positive story, think of it. I raised almost it was $5.6 million. I think more is going to come in. Sure. But I gave to many, many groups. You saw me reading the list. Yes. 100,000 here, 250,000, 1 million to one group.
Why were you so agitated that day?
Because I thought I was treated very unfairly. When you raise, I never thought this is a possibility that could be a bad story. That was a terrible story for me. They said, oh, we should have given the money out faster. I get up to make a speech. I say, let's raise some money for the vets. I didn't have any obligation to do it. I get up, I make a speech. I say, let's get some money. I have one friend in the audience. He's a rich guy. He gave $1 million. I have another one that gave Carl Icahn, gave $500,000. We had great people. They gave money. Ike Perlmutter gave money.
But in the end, you won, Donald.
No.
You think it's a bad story.
But I get treated unfairly. Now, I think, here's the good news. I have a speaker that gets, you know, I can fight back a little bit, okay? It's very tough to fight the press when it's very dishonest, but I have a speaker that I can fight back. I think the people, I have had so many letters from the vets and calls to my office and emails and everything you can imagine, tweets. I mean, the tweeting has become a big thing. I will say, I have had so many tweets and Facebook where the vets are thanking me so much for what I did. But here's the thing. When you raise $5.6 million and you're excoriated by these people, why wasn't it given fast enough? Why wasn't this? Why wasn't
not like you're not running for president?
Well, first of all, I had no obligation even to do it. Honestly, from a PR standpoint, I would have been much better if I never did anything, if I never gave all those groups. I gave many, I don't even know how many, but many groups, great groups. I gave them money, a lot of money, you know, more money than they've probably seen.
Well, look,
they wake up and they get a check for $100,000. Another one gets a check for $250,000. And instead of being treated nicely, I was treated badly. So,
do you
to me,
ever
that's
think
unfair.
you can go like this and just say, I'm going to just...
Yes, I do. When I'm wrong, I tell you, I can take criticism better than any human being.
You can, and I want to talk about that. I was on an airplane with you, your plane. I'll bet it was 15 years ago. And you were sitting next to me, and you were reading, I think it was a New York Times magazine. I have a vivid recollection, and I had already read it. It was a story about you. And I was in politics at the time, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just kind of watching you. There wasn't a grimace. Your brow didn't move. It didn't change your temperament. How'd you get so tough?
Well, it's not a question of tough. When I am wrong and they write about it, I can take that better than anybody. I agree with them. I have no problem. But when they write falsely, they write so many false things, and you understand that because I know you did the political thing, and I know you even went against Hillary for a period of time.
Yeah, a few weeks.
She's a major liar. They talk about foreign policy that Donald Trump wants Japan to get
Get a
nukes
nuke.
immediately. I don't want that. I want Japan to pay us because we're protecting them. And if they don't pay us, you have to be prepared to walk. And if you walk, they're going to arm. Now, how they're going to arm, that's going to be up to them. But I never say Japan should nuke. But it's so falsely
But what
reported.
Hillary is saying about you is that you're a loose cannon. The world order is going to change. You're a fraud. You're a scam. Is she picking up your way of handling
Yeah, she's
campaigning?
trying to. She's trying to.
And tweeting?
She's trying to pick it up. But look, Hillary is incompetent. You know that by just look at her past record. Look at Libya. Look at what happened with Benghazi. Look at what happened with so many different things that she's done. Everything she's done. It's
So
been
why do
a
people
loss.
support her?
It's almost out of habit, if you ask me. It's almost out of habit. It's like, why do you keep eating popcorn when it doesn't taste good? Okay? It's like a habit. Boom, boom. and the same thing with her. She's a habit.
Okay.
And you know what? It's time now. I think people are fed up with the Hillarys of the world. I think they're fed up with Obama, who is one of the worst presidents ever. I think they're fed up when they look at the Iran deal, when they look at the fact that China is just ripping us off in trade, ripping us, Mexico ripping us, or taking all of our companies.
And they call you a racist because you want to make America first. Okay, New York Times, quote, "The rise of Donald Trump tracks growing debate on global fascism." And Washington Post, that you just talked about, op-ed, "This is how fascism comes to America." Where's that coming from?
I don't get it, but it's a vicious group of people. It's on the left of where I am, and I'm sure where you are. But it's a vicious group of people. And frankly, I have to say, the one thing, they stick together. The Republican conservatives do not stick together. You have a guy like Bill Kristol, who's a total lightweight, but he's out there trying to find an independent candidate. You know, he's out there trying to find an independent candidate. Can't find anybody.
What does that tell you about how desperate the establishment is?
They're desperate. The Republicans do not stick together the way the Democrats do, and I give them credit for that. I give them credit for that. You look, I mean, even Bernie and Hillary, they're running, but it's a much friendlier battle, certainly, than we had as battles. You know, he doesn't want to talk as much about the emails, although now he's starting to talk about it. She's got a real problem. Look, that's a criminal problem that she's got. She's got a real problem. So, you know, she can talk all she wants, but if the administration is honest, there's no way she can run.
Well, look at Petraeus. I mean, he had to pay the price, but okay,
for doing much less.
It's been said that you are in a movement that people are speaking through you. How is it that a blue blood New York Ivy Leaguer with a silver tongue, it captures the loyalty, the imagination of the working class?
Well, it's been an amazing process, and I understand it. I understood it a long time ago, and people are talking about it. They're saying, here's this guy who lives on Fifth Avenue, and he's really rich, and he you know. But when I was a young guy, my father built houses in Brooklyn and Queens, and I would go to those building sites, and I'd work with the men. In that case, it was always men. I mean, today it's men and women.
You hired
but
one
I went, and I was one of the first people to do that, to hire women. And I got no credit for it, but these are, you know, minor details. What are you going to do? But I was literally in the construction industry. I was literally the first. Okay. So I would work with these people, and I would get along with them great. I loved them. They were tough. They'd fight at lunchtime. I mean, they'd have fist fights over something. But I got along with them great. And for some reason, I mean, I honestly like them much better than the rich people. It's very interesting. And the rich people know it.
Why?
I don't know. I think they're more real. There's less phoniness. But, you know, you can call them blue collar, you can call them, they're like, they're workers.
Well, yeah.
They're workers. And by the way, some of them are very successful people, and they become very successful because, you know, it is a movement, but it's a movement of everybody.
What is the movement?
It's a movement of people that are tired of seeing stupid decisions made in our country that are destroying our country, where our companies are leaving, our jobs, our people are being fired, where people haven't had a pay. When you talk about blue collar, they haven't had a pay increase in 18 years, an effective pay increase in 18 years. It's a group of people that are tired of stupidity. It's a group of people that want common sense, and they want to win again. We don't win anymore. We don't win with our military. We can't beat ISIS.
More to come. Next, I asked Donald Trump about the controversy swirling around Trump University and his personal comments about the judge in the case. Why did you refer to his ethnicity, Donald?
Well, because his heritage is Mexican.
And I get Trump's response to President Obama's scathing comments this week about him.
He ought to really focus on his job because he's doing a lousy job as president.
Part 2 of my interview with Donald Trump is next as justice rolls on. And presidential candidate Donald Trump. Take a listen to what Donald has to say about the controversy around Trump University and his comments about the judge in the case. Trump University. Did you oversell that?
Let me just tell you, it's just crazy what's going on. So we opened a school. We opened a school that was very successful, had a lot of students, and they did valuation reports after they left. And we have thousands and thousands of valuation reports. Everybody's saying it was great. They loved it. They loved it. I don't know if you ever heard this, but we have thousands of them.
So why are you getting sued?
Because a class action firm from California, who I hear gave Eric Schneiderman a lot of money to run, who I hear paid Hillary Clinton $900,000. This is all stuff that's going to come out that you don't hear. But I hear they paid her $900,000 for speeches. I hear they are.
Who did?
The firm that brought the
law
lawsuit
firm
paid Hillary Clinton $900,000, as I understand it, for speeches. They paid her a lot of money for her campaign. I heard $400,000 or $500,000 for her campaign. It's a very political thing. I have a judge who is truly unfair. I don't know the judge, but he's truly unfair in San Diego federally.
Why did you refer to his ethnicity, Donald?
Well, because his heritage is Mexican.
So
and because,
what?
Well, because I want to build a wall. And I'm getting along great, I think, with Hispanics, but I want to build a wall. There's some people that don't like that.
Some of the numbers don't indicate that. Do you think you have to dial it back?
Look, I have to be what I have to be. I mean, I have to tell the truth. I'm going to say that you need the wall. You know, I don't know if you saw what happened yesterday, but the 16,500 Border Patrol agents endorsed me. First time they've ever endorsed a presidential candidate.
They believe in you.
And I asked them about the wall. I said, let me ask you, how important is that? They said, Mr. Trump, it's so important. You need it. So, you know, people, I can understand people, but he's of Mexican heritage. I hope he's going to be fair, but he's treated me very unfairly. This is a case that should have been won on summary judgment. When you have the people that are suing you saying great things about the course in writing, and sometimes on tape, where they were actually on tape saying great things about, when the person that brought the suit was just dismissed from the case because she was such a bad witness, because she said all these positive things about the course, and she was just dismissed by this judge from the case. Well, if she dismissed him, if she was dismissed, he should have dismissed the whole case. The woman that brought the case, when we got to her deposition, we found her written word saying unbelievably positive things about the school. It was great. She evaluated it as great. She's then on tape. We have a tape where she's saying the most beautiful things about it. Nobody's forcing her. So they go to court and they see the judge and they say, Your Honor, we don't want her to be in the case anymore. So why wouldn't the case be dismissed?
Right.
The judge dismisses her from the case.
And lets the case stand.
And lets the case go.
Well,
he's been so unfair, and I don't want to call out a judge, but he's been so unfair. Now, maybe that'll change. Maybe he'll be fair. I would say he should recuse himself.
But, Donald, you have a lot of money. Why don't you just pay them off and call it a day? You don't need this.
I could have settled this case. I could now settle this case, but I could have settled this case. I chose not to. The reason is when this woman came to us, she wanted $300,000, which would have been $200,000. And they showed me, I said, why would she get that much money? For what? And then they showed me her records. And her record said, evaluation report, loved the school, great, 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 everything good. I'm not quoting exactly, but everything top, 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 as though she went to Harvard. Harvard should get such good reviews, okay? And then they showed me a tape of her saying great things about the school. I said, wait a minute, how can you give her money? I said, let the lawsuit proceed.
It's the principle.
It's the principle.
Okay.
It would have been cheaper, but it's the principle.
Okay, but you would have had a much easier week.
But how do you let... Whatever.
I mean, the sleeves, you're a real beaut.
Can I tell
when
you
I
what?
saw you say that, I mean, I had to laugh.
Well, that had to do with the veterans, though, because I've given the veterans so much money and I was criticized for it.
Okay, let's talk.
You know what that does, though? The one thing that does, people like me, people that have the option of raising $5 or $6 million for veterans and other causes, when they see what I go through by doing a great job, and then what I go through where the crooked Washington Post, which the paper is such a bad paper, it's so dishonest, and the New York Times, they wrote a story about me with women, and the women came out and they, I mean, I was so honored with Roanne and with, you know, the whole...
Did you remember her?
I did. She was a very nice person, and all of them. I mean, and I was so surprised.
You know,
and then
Donald,
they came
so
out.
many
But
people who
Jeanine,
work for you love you. I was in Trump Tower. I asked some guy, how does he treat you? Because he was an employee. He says, he treats us great. And then I said, how's he treat the women? He said, better.
well, you know, two things. So they write this article. It's on the front page of the New York Times, like the top. It looked like the National Enquirer.
I know.
National Enquirer is better. But it looked like the National Enquirer. Massive picture. And I said, what's this all about? And then I see the women, and I say, why would they say anything bad? And then they all came out, and they said, we didn't say. And then the same writer, who should have been fired, by the way, for what he did, because they said that's not what we said. He knows that's not what we meant and implied. Then the same writer writes another story about me a week later that was also a hit. Look, these papers are really dishonest. The media is very dishonest. And I'll tell you, when I find a good journalist, a really fair journalist, I cherish that person because that's a really important profession. I have such respect for a good journalist, but there are very few of them.
Why is it that you've got the President of the United States who is coming out and basically saying all these horror history? I mean, this early on, where the guy is coming out and trashing you. Why?
Well, he's coming out. He's actually trying not to use my name because he's not supposed to. You know, he ought to really focus on his job because he's doing a lousy job as president. And what he should do is focus on his job and find out why are we losing so many jobs. You know, the number 5% is a total phony number. It's really 20% or close to 20% unemployment. That's just a phony number to make the politicians look good. It's if you look for a job, Jeanine, and you don't find it, and you give up, and you go home, and you go to sleep.
You're still unemployed, but you're not a statistic.
You're not a statistic,
right.
okay?
But
it's a total phony number. And when I get 25 and 30,000 people to my rallies, they're not there just because I'm going to have strong borders and because I'm going to have a strong military. It certainly helps. But they're there because the economy is horrible for them and because these people literally haven't had a pay increase in decades.
What kind of pay increase should they get?
They should get good pay. Look, we need jobs in this country. When you see Carrier leaving for Mexico, when you see Ford building massive plants all over Mexico, when you see the PGA Tour take out of Miami
to Mexico,
they took their championship, their World Golf Championship, and they took it to Mexico, which is unsafe, by the way. I mean, you know, they had a tournament in Mexico. People were being mugged and robbed, and all sorts of things were happening. I can't imagine the players are going to be thrilled. But I mean, from my standpoint, I don't care. What I care is they took it from Miami. The people of Miami are incensed. They took it from Miami and they moved it to Mexico City, which has one of the highest crime rates in the world.
No doubt.
It's going to be very interesting to see how those players feel.
Let's talk about the most recent Quinnipiac poll. Your unfavorables around 50, her unfavorables about 50. Who has a better chance of flipping the haters? Do you have a better chance of flipping the Hillary haters to your side, or does she get a better chance of flipping your haters?
I think I do, because people know that she's incompetent. People know that she can't do the job. They know one thing about me. I'm very competent. I can do the job. Look, I borrowed $1 million, and it's worth now $10 billion. And I filed all of my documents. I filed with the federal elections, the biggest filing they've ever had. And it talks about this great company that I've built. I built a great company, very little debt, tremendous assets, tremendous.
Can you make America great again?
I can totally make America great again, and that's why I'm doing it. I mean, it's lovely to be with you, but I'd rather be with you without all the cameras. I mean, to be honest with you, it's doing this isn't fun. Doing campaigning isn't fun, although I think maybe I'm having as good a time as anyone's ever had. But still, it's a lot of work. I'm going from here. I'm going to make a major speech. I have 25,000 people.
Everywhere
coming.
you go, there's 25,000, 30,000
By the way, that's the other thing. We have the biggest crowds by far. If you listen, like the other night, I had a crowd of 11,000. Bernie had 3,000 at a different location. They said, Bernie Sanders had this massive crowd. With me, it was Donald Trump spoke tonight.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me ask you about Bernie. You're a New Yorker, in your face, you know, tough guy. Why won't you debate Bernie?
Well, I was asked the question by Jimmy, and we had a lot of fun. And I said, let the networks put up some money. Mm-hmm. And I said, like, maybe women's health issues, okay? Okay, I did it for the vets. Let's do something for women's health issues. And number one, the networks did not come through. They want to keep the money for themselves. They would make so much money. That would get such ratings. And I would actually love to debate him. The problem is he's number two. And to debate number two when you have number one doesn't really make a lot of sense.
What do you say to those people who say the reason you're not debating Bernie is because you don't want to, you know, have a fight off and in the hopes of getting his followers who will never vote for Hillary?
Well, the other thing is I don't really want to hit Bernie too hard because I think a lot of Bernie's people are going to come to me. See, Bernie and I are very different, but we're very similar in one thing. It's called trade. He understands what no other Democrat really understands or will say, that the United States is getting ripped off big league on trade. He understands that. I give him credit for that. Now, the difference is I can do something about it. I'll make great trade deals. He can't do that. He wouldn't know where to begin. But that's a big factor. Bernie and I agree on one thing big. The United States is being ripped off on trade. And I'm not looking to hit Bernie too hard because I would like to get his followers. I would, you know. Now, I don't know who she's going to pick. I mean, she may pick Bernie. She may pick Pocahontas from, you know, the phony Native American.
Let's talk about the name calling.
Yeah, well, it's fine. I mean, look,
okay.
She's, you know, you have more Indian blood than she has, okay?
And I don't have any.
Okay, well, that's more than
Do
she
you?
has. I have none, but I have more than her, okay? Yeah. No, she did that. It's like a fraud. She
Yeah,
said
when she was at Harvard,
She said,
so
no,
she
I
could
have
get
high
it.
cheekbones. So she got into Harvard or one of these schools.
Yeah, it was a Harvard
and,
thing.
you know, she said she was a minority. That's a fraud.
But,
I mean,
but if she were to run, you're not, I mean, she's no threat at all.
I wouldn't mind if she ran. No, I'd like her to
course,
run.
yeah.
I mean, I'd like her to run.
Okay, now, not only have you taken down the establishment, Donald, you discuss things that people only whisper about. All right, you're strong, you're smart, you've got great instincts, you've got great intuition. What do you say to those people who say that, as it relates to foreign policy, that you will just make a decision and not have a cabinet that includes people who don't agree with you?
Well, you've known me for a long time. That's not the way you act. I have a lot of people. Ultimately, I'll make the decision, but I'll have a lot of good people. But I get a kick when they say, oh, well, he doesn't have the people that have been there for the last 10 years. Who wants those people? Look at the mess the world is in. We have the migration. We have Syria. We have Iraq as a disaster. We have all these things. There's nothing good. If the politicians never entered office for the last 15 years, that includes Obama and it includes people more than Obama, you wouldn't have the problems that you have today. I mean, just take a look. I always say, if our presidents would have gone to the beach and just gone to the beach and not done anything, would be in better shape. Jeanine, the country is a mess. The world is a mess. We helped make the world a mess. Going into Iraq was a disastrous decision, maybe the worst decision ever in the history of our country. Number two, getting out of Iraq the way Obama did it, he didn't have a clue. And now you have, I mean, then she got into Libya. And by the way, who has the Libyan oil? I'll tell you who has it. ISIS has it.
Right.
And it's great oil, by the way. It's the highest quality oil you can get. So ISIS now has the oil that Hillary Clinton gave them by going in and doing that stupid, you know, that stupid attack on Libya. Just the world was crushing, and she goes and wants to do more. She doesn't have a clue. She doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't have the strength, the energy. She cannot be president.
Let's talk about strength and energy. How are you doing it? Number one, you're accessible. You're on radio. You're on television. I mean, you're here with me now. I mean, you're in California campaigning, and you're sitting down with me. I mean, do you ever sleep?
Well, I don't sleep that much. I mean, I get 4 or 5 hours, but I just seem to have strength. I love what I do. You know, my father used to say, "You gotta love what you do," and I say it all the time. I love what I do. I'm having fun doing this. I mean, it's brutal in a sense, but I have fun doing this.
Next, Donald Trump tells me why he can win in states where other Republicans have traditional candidate Donald Trump. Next, I asked Donald what he needs to do to win the general election, and does he think he can get some of those states the Republican establishment never could? Take a listen.
I think I have a shot at California. Now, traditionally, no Republican would even waste 10 minutes in California. But everywhere I go, I get 30,000 people, 35,000 people. And, you know, the sad part, if I have 100 protesters, that's all they want to cover. In fact, I had one the other day, fairly recently, with 31,000 people. And all they wanted to talk about was the guy that was stomping on the police car, who should have been arrested, by the way. I don't even think they arrested him.
Yeah.
But he was stomping on the police car. That's all they wanted to show. But we get massive crowds, but I'll play to areas of the country that no other Republican can play. For instance, we're going to give California, everybody would say, don't waste your time in California. I have great relationships with the people of California, and I'm going to try for California. I'm going to try for New York. People would say New York and California, forget about it. We're doing great in Pennsylvania, great in Ohio. We have a 4-point lead in Ohio already.
Interesting.
We're doing, obviously, really well in Florida. That's my second home. New Jersey just came out. We're doing incredible in New Jersey. Is a place that no Republican would ever go to.
Right.
And I'm close to winning.
So let me ask you this. Over the past year, it's been 1237 is the number.
Right.
You made it to 1237. You are not only the presumptive nominee, but you're going to be the nominee.
And I always told you I would make it.
You always said you would. And that's what I mean about the confidence, the instinct, the intuition. Anyway, new number is 260.
Right.
Electoral College.
Okay.
All right, you've got to win everything that Mitt Romney won and more. Talking about Ohio, you're 4 points up. You think you need John Kasich? He's one of the guys who hasn't come out and said.
Well, I have a good relationship with him. I think, relatively speaking, I have. I mean, I got along with him pretty well during the run, so I had no major problems. Some of them I did. I mean, look. Marco came out and endorsed me the other day, and we didn't have a good relationship, and I respect him for doing it. I appreciate that he did it. But we have, John and I have had a good relationship. We'll have to see what happens. I don't know.
How do you get people who trashed you and who hated you to just come around? And, I mean, I
don't think you do. Look, there are some that you don't even want. I mean, I had some very tough sessions with some of them. And it's not even honest in some cases if they came around. And you don't even want. You just have to write some people off. You know, you're not going to get everybody. And I don't want everybody. I don't really want. You know who I want? I want the people. That's who I want. But there will be some people who I beat, who I defeated, who are still, you know, licking their wounds. And I understand that. It was a rough race.
By the way, the number for the Electoral College is 270. More on my interview is still ahead as I ask some personal questions to Donald Trump. But next, we remember Muhammad Ali as I talk live with a man who once fought the champ. Don't go away. So for this part of my interview with him, I got personal. Here's the rest of my sit-down from California. What's your favorite food?
I like food. I would say I like steak, I like pasta, I like many different kinds of food.
You know what I think your favorite food is?
Tell me.
Meatloaf.
Well,
we used to always heat it up on the plane.
Especially my mother's meatloaf, right?
Aww.
That's right.
What can you do for this country? I know you're going to say you can make it great again, but can you bring together the division, the people?
I think so.
How?
I think I can. And I'll tell you what. Barack Obama has been a terrible president, but he's been a tremendous divider. He has divided this country from rich and poor, from black and white. I mean, he has divided this country like no president, in my opinion, almost ever. And number one, we need a cheerleader. I always thought one thing with him. I said, he's unqualified to be president, and Hillary's unqualified. She's unqualified because she has very bad judgment. Hillary has horrible judgment. And Bernie Sanders said that about her. But Obama, I thought, was going to be a great cheerleader, and he turned out to be a very bad cheerleader. The one thing I thought he could do is bring people together, and it turned out to be just the opposite. I will bring people together.
Thank you, Donald
Thank
Trump.
you. Thank you.
We'll be right back. On with Donald Trump. After our interview, Mr. Trump invited us along to his rally that night in San Jose, California. Tomorrow night on a special Sunday edition of Justice, I'll take you there for some street justice from that rally. But here's a preview. Why are you here tonight?
Well, the reason I'm here is because Trump stands for what I came here for 35 years ago, and I feel everything's going down the tubes.
What do you think about the wall?
Well, I think I have a lock on my front door, and I have a fence around my house. So I believe that, yeah, having a wall for security is a good idea.
What do you think of the fact that Hillary said today he's a loose cannon and you can't let him near the nuclear button?
I have an open mind to the thing. She can say whatever she says, and...
Do you believe her? I mean, she's been around a while.
I have an open mind.
What about that video in Benghazi, Mr. Open Mind? Don't miss Street Justice from Donald Trump's rally in San Jose. It's part of a special Sunday edition of Justice tomorrow night at 9. That's it for us tonight. Remember, friend me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, and on Instagram at Judge_Jeanine. Let me know